All right. This should be live. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thanks to those of you who are here early today. And for those of you that are new to our webinar platform, thanks for finding us. Hopefully it wasn't too tricky. The direct link should take you right to our website. And don't worry if you're bopping around or get distracted, you can always pop back in. So I will wait one more minute before we get started. Gosh, I love how prompt you all are. Thank you. Get a quick sip of water and ready to go. All right.
Laura, I'm gonna just grab mine too. It's just right here. Give me one second.
Yep. Hey guys. Hey Kara, Megan. Lots of new names on here. Welcome to our Walla webinar series. For those of you who have popped in so far, on the right side of your screen, you'll see, you can see the list of folks that are here, but you can also chat in. So please, if you wouldn't mind, pop into the chat and introduce yourself. Obviously, your name is there, but your studio, where you're coming from. Hi, Sherry. Welcome. Oh my gosh, very exciting. It's your welcome to Walla Day, and you get to be on a webinar. That is all amazing. Okay. Thank you all for being here. We will officially get started. My name's Laura, and I am the founder and president here at Walla, and we host a Walla webinar series every month for our clients, for people that are interested in learning more about the boutique fitness business side of the industry. And we bring on fantastic guests and experts from all around the boutique fitness industry. And today we are so honored to have Josh Biro here from the Yogapreneur Collective. Josh and I have worked together for a number of years, both speaking at conferences, educating, working together in every capacity, creating content, helping businesses. And I lean on Josh for a lot of things when it comes to marketing and social media and sales in boutique fitness businesses. And Josh, one of the questions I asked going into this year was what topics are top of mind for our clients, for boutique fitness businesses. And I believe social media was the number 2 request. So I'm very excited to dive into this topic and appreciate you being here with us today.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So let me share my screen and we'll kick it, if that's cool.
Amen. Yeah, one quick thing, you guys, as we get started, for those of you who are newer to our webinar series, this is interactive. So we want you to ask questions. If you want to pop into the chat at any time and raise a hand, there's actually a question button on the right side. So if you have a question and you really want it answered right away, it's going to be really important to the context of the conversation, please select that. We want this to be something that helps you take action in your business today, this week. So if there is something that is stopping you from that, please ask away. Josh and I will both pipe in.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think we're ready to rock. So Josh, anything you want to lay the groundwork with as far as your background and why people should listen to you?
Yeah, I've got a little bit a section on the slide, so I'll get to there in a second. Perfect. But I'll just echo what Laura said, you guys, that here's the thing about webinars. Webinars are boring. So let's make this not boring. And the way that happens is we want to curate it to what you guys need to know informationally. Put your questions in there. If you don't understand something we're talking about, you want more clarity or whatever, make sure they're in. We'll make sure that we get to them by the end to the best of our ability. And a big element of this is because, as the title suggests, social media in boutique fitness, how to stand out, drive organic growth, and invest. Honestly, we could run twice a week webinar series for 8 months on social media and not scratch the surface. It's a huge subject matter. It's why there are social media agencies that do nothing but a couple of platforms and stuff. That's not to say that it's overwhelming or that you shouldn't be able to participate in it, but rather it's just a large subject. So the goal for today, more than anything else, is to inspire you guys, answer questions, and help to clarify from a more macro level, what the heck are we doing if we're trying to stand out and drive organic growth? What's actually working versus what's not? Because maybe a slightly unpopular opinion, there is just a lot of garbage information out there, and the social media world appears to be changing super fast all the time, which it is in some ways, but what isn't changing is human psychology at the same pace. So if we understand really what is happening when it comes to social media, and we have a little bit of a paradigm shift, my experience with the clients we work with is that we actually get a lot more success, especially right now in 2024, than most people think, than most people realize.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's kind of do it.
Dive in. Yeah. I will say just quickly, selfishly, I want our clients to look badass on social media. I want you guys to stand out. I want it to look different when we land on your sites and it not be garbage. So that is why I brought
Jonathan. 100%. We'll get to that and sort of how that plays, because there is a spider web. Part of the advantage of social media, let's jump us ahead a little bit here, right? Part of the advantage in general, and we're talking about how do you stand out, how do you drive organic growth, and then invest, how do you put some money towards it as well. It's realizing that the era of social media that we have been in part since mostly I'd say 2010, has created this interconnectivity, this spider web of connectivity between people in a completely new way. And as an example of this, I'll share from a personal side that I've got a 13-year-old son, and if I let him, he would stay online and play video games, or he's allowed to be on one social media channel just now. He would just do only that all day, every single day. And another friend of mine who has younger kids was making the comment that they're like, kids, they're not going out and playing with their friends. He's like, I used to ride my bike and my mom would just say, come home when the streetlights come on and stuff. And I was like, did that really happen? And I think that's just what old people say. But in any case, I was making the debate, not to say that it's healthier in some way, but rather I would have played with 1, 2, 3 friends a week in person. And now in the era of social media, my son is communicating with 50. And I mean, really communicating. He knows every single person in his class. He knows where they are. He knows when their quinceañera is. There's a bigger network of connectivity. So from a business standpoint, it's the realization that right now, if you have a computer in your pocket, like we all do, there's kind of no excuse to be able to get your message out there and build brand awareness in your local market. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay. Why do people not like social media? Let's start there. Well, it's because you suck at it, pretty much. And there's a lot of, let's say, philosophical debates around social media and the health of it and what its objectives are. And I'm not going to really debate any of those points. But when we look at it from a business perspective, 9 out of 10 times when I talk with an owner of any studio and they say, I don't like social media, or I don't participate on social media, or even more common, social media doesn't really work for us. We don't think we're getting anything back from it. When we go and audit what they're doing, what we realize is that they don't like it because they aren't really doing it. They're not wholeheartedly in it at all. So the most important detail right out of the gate is changing the mentality around what the purpose of it is for your business, and dissociating that from you personally having an opinion about, do you like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever else. If you want to grow your business and you want to get in front of people, it doesn't matter if you like that stuff or not. So look at it more like communication distribution channels. We'll come back to that point as we go. And one of the interesting things, I work mostly in the yoga industry, but in boutique fitness in general. And recently we've been working with a few therapy offices, and they actually express this too. There's this quirky concern when it comes to social media around the actual instructors. So for example, like if I'm teaching a yoga class, a lot of owners might be concerned that I'm going to like solicit the people in the class to follow me on social media, which then they do. Or if they like me, then they follow me if I have a social media following. And I'm somehow stealing from the business in doing that. Now, stealing from the business would be going into the Wallace system and downloading the list and walking away with it and then emailing those people. That's not ethical and should be blocked. But social media is different, hence the word social. We actually want this to happen. That's one of the big shifts. And what's fascinating is that we have a few businesses out there now, when they embrace this fully, their staff and they themselves as an individual build a much larger following than the business does. And we'll make this point a few times, but it simply comes down to the fact that anyone type in the chat and correct me if you disagree. People want to do business with people, not with businesses. Until a business becomes a major brand and stands for something and has a movement around it, then maybe. But still, preferentially, we want the people element.
Human connection.
Yeah. And if we invest time and participation in it, a lot of owners express that they don't feel like it's worth it. I think that partly that's because we're not doing sort of the right thing. We're not focusing on the right thing. Same thing if we're running ads, we think that there might not be good ROI, but actually more often than not, it's because we're measuring it incorrectly. We're not actually seeing the benefit, and we might be measuring it too early, or we're making a like judgment on the measurements too early as well. So what does that mean? We'll jump in on it. There's almost an unlimited amount of content that anyone on this call could create. That's what's really fascinating. Boutique fitness does not have a content problem. Like, just think about if you run a mat Pilates class or reformer Pilates, just talking about the core moves on the reformer only, just the core ones, nothing outside of the box, and all of the details of body positioning and contraction concentration and alignment and whatever else, you've got years of content. You could post every single day and still have something to say about it. So it's never been the issue, and now more than ever, to have something to say. The issue is often deciding what to say that is impactful for the audience you're giving it to, and curating the way you say it to make it interesting. It's actually, now you could say entertaining, but I would use that word loosely. Really, it's more about interest, something that can hold some attention as well. The good news is that means there's actually kind of a large advantage if we look at the fact that when we're talking about competing for attention, attention being really the goal for social media, and let me back us up for a bigger statement. We're in what I would call the era of data, which means whoever can aggregate, control, and benchmark the data ultimately wins. But the other way that we look at data in context for this conversation is attention. And it's the simple statement that where attention goes, the money flows. That's it. Simple as that. Or on the more macro, if we talk about marketing, marketing is an exercise in memorization. How do adults memorize things? They see them repetitiously. We're top of mind. Yeah. So we have a lot of potential content. It's really more about figuring out how to deliver that content in a powerful way and simplifying it to have a system of delivery. So why is it that there's any difficulty? Well, there's only two categories that I experience with owners. One, you're not doing it at all. Or two, we're just looking at it the wrong way completely. It brings us to some unpopular truths. Here's the bait and switch that is this entire webinar. Social media channels aren't the part that matters at all. I'm not going to come on here and be like, you should, I mean, I'm actually going to tell you guys which channels to go on and stuff, but to say like, you got to be on Facebook and here's this super hack to whatever, do a dark post like this and blah, blah, blah. That does not matter anywhere near as much as what really matters, which is content. Content is message. It's the single most empowering thing that you can do in your business to differentiate yourself in your market, build your brand, build the know, like, trust elements, and allow people to organically transition themselves through the standard phases of your funnel, from awareness to consideration to purchase to evangelism.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the proof in a simple, weird concept. If Laura creates content, don't worry about social media, just creates a piece of content, let's say a video that's 3 minutes long, every single day for the next year, and then we distribute it wherever we can. And I create a 3-minute video twice a month for the next year. And you have to bet on which one of us is going to have more inflow of clients and more brand awareness. Who are you going to bet on? Where are you putting your money? Right. So really the first barrier is to not get caught up in the weeds of social media at all, and rather say, I need to create powerful content that builds my brand. And when we do that first, then social media just becomes the distribution channel as part of a bigger content strategy. And that's where it gets more fun, because we're not focused on what's the trend and which platform that and the algorithm this, because none of that shit matters nearly as much. And in fact, organic social media specifically, 2024, and we're going to see this surge for the next couple of years. It's coming full circle, where even Facebook, for example, is going to algorithmically serve up quality content to a wider array of people than it has through the last years. There's been sort of a market shift there. We'll touch on this again in a while, but we call this the TikTokification of social media. TikTok has sort of like changed the game a bit, in my opinion, actually for the better. And most of the recommendations online, when we look at digital ads, social media, this hack, do this, here's the trending sound, all you have to do is in the first 3 seconds, like poke yourself in the eye and then say something, whatever. It's not that has no value, but like generally from what should you focus on is bullshit. It's all just, that's clickbaity stuff for that social media to get traction itself, and is far less relevant than creating content at volume and putting it out. Let's go one step further when we talk about content at volume. If Laura is posting every single day and I'm posting twice a month, Laura has had 365 at-bats. How much do you think she's going to learn about what does or doesn't perform, how to be comfortable creating it, where exactly to do it, versus me? She's just got more reps in. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So any of us would say this to our students coming into your studios as well. The first thing, that they need to do is find some consistency. It's like, how do I win at whatever it is? Pilates, yoga, bar, like step one, come in, and then tomorrow come back again, and the next day come back again, and the next day come back again. Like that's the first thing that has to happen. It's exactly the same thing, getting enough reps in. Ultimately, what do we actually want though? Leads. If I go deeper in an interview talking with people about social media, and we say, why would you consider social media? Why is it the number 2 thing that people are asking about? Maybe it's because they have a general sense that like there is something powerful in it. They haven't quite figured out how to crack the code for themselves yet. But if we really go a layer deeper, I would debate that what an owner really wants are leads. We want someone to come into the business. That's what this is about. And it comes down to this really simple statement. If you double your leads, you double your business. That's it. Now, to back us up to some of the smack talk up front here, if you want more leads and you know doubling leads doubles your business and you think social media is a way to do that, which it is, by the way, then it's no longer a question of should or shouldn't I do it, do or don't I like it anymore. It's just a function of the business. All right, real quick, what the heck do I know? Why would you listen to me about any of this shit? Well, I've been offering social media consulting and actually running ad services and coaching boutique fitness studios for over 10 years now around this, and have gotten to be part of sort of the ebb and flow and change of what's happened. And it's been really sort of a fascinating journey. In the recent years, what I would say is I have been, for the last decade plus, and by extension my team, solely focused on what actually performs for a brick and mortar boutique fitness studio. And that specificity has really helped us clarify what really works versus a more generic, generalized approach of how do you win at social media? How do you go viral? How do you become an influencer, whatever else? Because it's just a different game that we're playing. So I like using the word yogapreneur, hence our name, the Yogapreneur Collective. There's a few elements to what that means, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a yogi, but one of the elements that we say that is a requirement of being a yogapreneur is having commitment to continued learning and skill development. It's realizing that the destination or the target is good to give you direction, but it's not the point. The path itself, the trial and error, the learning part itself, that is like the journey, that is the real value. So social media and all of this is, in my opinion, actually one of the top 3 most impactful testing grounds and skill development places for you as an entrepreneur, as a yogapreneur in your business, because of how much you can put out there, how fast you can get feedback, how much authority it can give you, how much testing and iteration there is. I don't know a single person who has gotten good at posting and creating content on social media who then in their studio sucks at talking to students, selling stuff, teaching a class. Not one. Conversely, I do know people who are okay at those things, but don't do the social media part, but they struggle to sell or engage someone or something like that. So in a weird way, it's actually a very empowering sort of endeavor to be focused on. All right, really quick, when we're talking about leads and marketing as it pertains to this, attention is what we want. What that actually measurably looks like is engagement. So it's people actually actively participating in the content that you're putting out there. And when we do this well, we create authority. Authority comes from trust, likeness, and competency. That's how competency. I can't even say that word. Don't worry about it. I know you guys get it. That's why it's on the screen. The bottom line is, if I don't think that your product or you are competent, you can't actually help me solve a problem, I probably don't want to do business with you. If I don't really like you, I'm not going to evangelize you. If I don't trust you, I don't want to do anything with you at all. Yeah. So authority comes from these 3 things. And the precursor to that is I have to be engaged with you enough to have enough exposure to go through the path for you to basically earn my trust, likeness, and competency. And like we said already, and we'll say again, I want to do business with people. It's hard for me to like a business and like or trust a business. It's not that I don't at all, but it's the people in it that I'm going to connect to organically more. And obviously, leads are the real goal. What is a lead? Let's just make it real simple. It's people actively coming into your business. I would say that someone becomes a lead in a boutique fitness studio as soon as they actively reach out to you. So as soon as I give you my contact information so that now you and I can directly communicate with each other, now I'm a hot lead. Yeah. It's not that there are no versions of leads before that, but that's the pinnacle point that we're trying to create. Because at that moment, you change from what we call like a marketing qualified lead, just being a lead, to being a sales qualified lead. Now you're in sales. That's the transition. And just to be thorough, there are no bad leads. if I go to a webinar or if I go to, there's not a lot of conferences these days, but like, if I do a conference and I see someone or hear someone say again, like, you just got to get good quality leads and filter your leads or whatever else, I think I will vomit on the floor. Like, it's so ridiculous when we look at it from the context of our product. It doesn't mean that every lead is good, but there are no bad leads. And the reason for this is, even if I put stuff out there and Laura is engaging with me, and Laura herself is not the person who ends up paying me a bunch of money and participating, Laura's participation still creates benefit to my business. It's still social proof. She still tells somebody else about me. She still maybe engages with my posts, et cetera, et cetera. So there are no bad leads when it comes to social media at all. And it's an important shift, because if we start looking at it like, well, I don't know if I'm putting it in front of the right people. That's not really who practices here. I don't know if they're going to participate, or they always message me online, but they don't even come in for class. Don't worry about it. That's not actually the point. Conversely, it is possible to have a bad product. It's possible to have a poor sales process. It's possible to make false promises. Those things are possible, but there's no such thing as a bad lead.
Yeah. I've gotten the question, Josh, quite a bit, like, what about those people that engage with you on social media, but they never give us their contact information. They never send us an email. Do we continue to engage with them online? Do you push your sales process into social media?
Yes. And you can accept, in sales in general, one of the things we train to, which is a little bit of a tangent, but is related, is permission-based selling. So when we talk about permission-based selling, it means I am not allowed to make an actual offer to you until you ask me for it or you say that I can. So what that practically looks like is, if you and I are talking on a call like this and we're talking about your business, and then I want to tell you about the coaching packages that I run, I'm not just going to tell you. I'm going to talk with you, and you have to either say, Josh, tell me about your coaching packages. Or if we get to the end of the call, I would say, hey, Laura, we're getting towards the end of the call. How do you feel about learning about our coaching packages? Do you want me to tell you about them? You have to tell me. You have to give me the permission to do it. When we take that and put it into social media land, it just means if someone's engaging with you, that is beneficial on secondary and tertiary levels. And the sales element of it is probably just when someone engages, just asking that question. Hey, would you be interested in chatting about practicing? Or like, did you want to come and try a class on me? Like something really soft like that. It doesn't have to be very heavy. Cool. Yeah. One other thing I would say to that is, if I engage with you online publicly, you might not be the person who comes in and participates, but someone else is living vicariously through the narrative that we're playing out.
Yeah.
And that can call someone in. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. We've all heard the statement, you make what you measure. I like that statement. And I would say it's true. It is a little too lightweight because what it doesn't describe is, are you measuring the right thing? So if you're measuring something, that's cool. But like we said earlier, where the attention goes, the money flows, even just like energetically, without getting woo-woo here. If you that's quantum physics. If I look at something, it impacts the thing that I'm looking at. It actually literally changes it. So when you start measuring something, you're looking at it, which means if you're measuring the right thing, energy is going towards it and it will change. You're measuring nothing changes. And if you're measuring the wrong thing, it doesn't change. So before we just say, we've got to measure what we're doing here when it comes to social media, we want to make sure that we're measuring the correct thing. What's the correct thing? It's not direct return on investment. It's not a click-through rate. And that's a little bit controversial in the social media world. But when we talk about a brick and mortar business, it's very seldom, if ever, that we find that we post content and then someone sees that and they click and they fill out a form and they buy a thing, and we can directly attribute a return on investment of the ad spend or blah, 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 blah. That's not usually what we see play out. And in my opinion, isn't even worth attempting to go too far down that direction. What we really want is exposure in your market. Then we would judge the success of the content itself by engagement. And we'll know that those things are ultimately working because we will have an increase in leads coming into the business. Simple as that.
So we have a quick question. Heather was wondering, just on that, like as you're talking about kind of volume and consistency, is there such thing as too much content on social media? Do you think people will think you're putting out too much and bugging them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Short answer, no. Or like it would have to be so extreme, but there are ways that you can manually mitigate these things, first off. But more importantly, just consider that, one, if you say something like, let's say, we'll use a ridiculous example. If I'm telling you about this cup and I tell you about it one time only ever, in 3 weeks from now, how likely can you tell me about this cup? Mm-hmm. Unlikely. You need to hear the same thing about this cup multiple times before it's like really understood. So higher frequency of content, even if it's the same content, is solidifying what your brand is about. And algorithmically, all of these platforms want people to stay on the platform. So they optimize over time based off how things are engaged. And it's highly unlikely that one single person, you could post 5 times a day just on Facebook. It's unlikely that one single person would see all 5 of those posts.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. We act under the assumption a lot that if you put something out there, all of your clients have seen it. And that is rarely the case. So
the nature of this question is really positive, and it applies in other areas in business as well. My comment would be this: it's the winning racehorse question that we already did. It's like, let's use another example. If you buy a 1-month intro and I buy a 1-month intro, or we each buy one at a studio, and my studio sends you an email every day and a text message once a week and phones you once a week, and yours sends 1 email and 1 text message only, even if mine's way too much content that I'm sending you, like it's like super over the top, still, if you had to bet on who is going to get more interaction and sales as a result, and you have to put your money on it, you're going to go for the person with the higher volume. Like, so sometimes I think that our nature in wellness businesses to really be considerate of trying to do positive things for our clients actually blinds us to the fact that in the bigger scheme of impact, I would rather err on the side of more content and higher volume of stuff going out there and have one person be like, you post too much stuff, I don't like you, Josh, but then be seen by another 500 people, than try to keep that one person happy, sort of thing. So, yep. Okay, exposure, engagement, leads. And if you can't measure, the reason I say this is, as soon as something, while it does have the ability to put like a Facebook pixel connected into it, so we can actually measure some of these things, but sometimes we just can't measure to the detail that we want. And attribution is difficult because people don't necessarily tell us organically what's happened. Laura might have seen an ad from me 20 times and be following me for 3 years on social media. She shows up at my studio and I'm like, how did you hear about us? And she says, oh, my friend Jim told me, because she wants to give the credit to her friend who did tell her. Yeah. So asking the how did you hear about us is not enough. So if we're not sure and we can't measure, we need to straight ask. But the question that you need to ask is, have you seen us on Facebook? Have you ever seen a Google ad from us? Like a more specific question. And then the other thing to do as an extension of that is periodically to run a survey about this and to test by putting something out and then surveying and seeing what comes back on the other side. It is very fascinating to sometimes do this. I wouldn't do it at high frequency, but we often learn a lot in a studio because we realize actually people are seeing our stuff more than we think they are. And actually they're online more than they would like to admit they are as well. And actually the fact that we're posting multiple times a week on Instagram we are actually being seen, and that is helping create brand exposure. It's just people aren't reporting it to us by themselves unless we specifically ask. Ultimately, with social media, what's the point? What's the value? It's not the content itself. It's the audience that the content creates. That's the value. The bigger your audience, the bigger everything else. If you put something out and you can get 10,000 people to see it, or you have a 10,000 person emailing list eventually, and I only have a 100, you just have more leverage. There's more people to go to. There's more people to evangelize. All right, real quick, there's 6 ways that you're going to get people into your business. Social media is a component of distribution across all of them, but especially the 3 yellow ones. Word of mouth, so hence social. If I'm online posting stuff, asking questions, sharing things, talking about your studio, that is modern day word of mouth. So we have to look at it from that angle. Paid ads, because if you're going to put money behind advertising, social media ads are probably the best bang for your buck still by at least 1,000% over most things out there in most cases. And they're really fast. Fast being, if we think about it right now, I can grab my phone and while we're on this call, get an ad up and going. And by the end of today, be pretty darn sure that like 500 eyeballs have been on it. That's insane. If you started when I did in the yoga world, circa 2005, it was like, that wasn't a thing. We were still running radio ads, you know? And then organic is super powerful because it builds the know, like, trust. It's a very authentic feeling lead gen source. Social media and social channels are the places where organic performs the best currently across the board. So how do you actually do this? Let's jump into some of the meat. Number 1, we want to look at the whole strategy of the content creation first as the priority. Then we look at the social media channels. I think building a content matrix is the simplest way to get this mapped out to start. You'd be surprised. You could probably do this in an afternoon and you've got a whole year of content conceptualized, ready to go. A content matrix is basically saying, okay, what should my brand be known for? And if possible, you want to be known for something very specific or unique. So just saying, we do yoga, well, everyone's going to say that. Like, why would I come to your yoga studio? What's special about what you do? So if you're the only hot yoga studio in the market, that would be one of the pillars, is you need to talk about heat and why you have heat and how you curate the heat and the benefit of the heat, et cetera, et cetera. If you're a studio that only does sort of slower paced classes, or you're a studio that's more like fitness oriented, like find the unique angle. You don't need many, 3 to 5. And honestly, most studios in the beginning benefit from it being less, just doing 3 things. What you're basically creating is like this pillar or this cluster that is the thing you're going to repeat. Because again, marketing is an exercise in memorization. We memorize things that are repeated. So I want to talk about the same generalized subject matter. I'm not going to say the exact same thing, but I want to talk about the same things over and over and over and over and over again, because that's how I will become clear in people's mind, in my market, who I am and what I do. And from a purchasing standpoint, you can't buy something that you're not clear on. If I don't actually know what it is or why I want it or how I buy it, I won't buy it. There's no way for me to understand the value that it can offer. And then you would filter that through a second filter, which are just content types, or in other words, different formats. And I would probably create 5 to 10 of those. So let's suppose one of your pillars is, using the example we already did, hot yoga. And then there's some must include content types here. We'll go through in 1 second. I could talk about one specific detail of hot yoga. That might be the fact that it warms the muscles up, which means if you're injured or if you are very immobile and it's difficult for you to generate enough internal heat in a yoga practice, it keeps you safe because it gets your body to the heated, like as hot as it should be to do the class in a safe and effective way. So that's 1 point on that pillar. And then I'm going to create that 1 point in a small video. I'm going to you do a sort of symptom problem solution. I'm going to tell a story about it. I'm going to do a behind the scenes of someone talking about it. I'm going to do an educational thing. I'm going to write a blog. I'm going to put it in a newsletter. I'm going to write an email about it. The grunt test is, what is it? Why do I want it? How do I buy it? So I'm just going to explain it really straightforward. So just in that one pillar, in that one micro detail, just from this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 places that we're going to put that. So again, like, we don't have a content problem. It's going to be easy to get the volume up. Most importantly, for content types, just so that it's been said, symptom, problem, solution, stories, and little bit educational, less so, but those are the two that I would focus on the most. And then educational would be second. Symptom, problem, solution is, I'm experiencing this and I don't like it. And then if you're able to tell me, if you're experiencing this symptom, it might be because actually this is the problem, and therefore you need to do this thing to solve it. That's the solution. It takes me through the epiphany bridge, and the human nature of it is, if I can describe your problem better than you can, you automatically assume I have the solution for it. It creates a lot of authority.
Yeah.
When we talk about why would people pay attention to your business, they need to get something from it. What do they want? They want transformation. They want to solve a problem. They want to improve their life. They want to move away from pain or towards pleasure. So that type of content, from a brand building, from a clarifying, from a getting leads generated standpoint, is a really great starting point.
Do you find that one of those is engaged with more, like the symptom problem solution versus behind the scenes?
We find that behind the scenes tends to organically get the most engagement. That said, it does seem to shift if you get a lot of volume going. Mm-hmm. And there is a little tweak of how you present your like symptom problem solution can make it get more engaged. The behind the scenes tends to get more organic engagement, but if you look at who's engaging, it's the existing community.
Got it.
Same thing with educational content. If I've never seen your business before, if you're a bar studio and I've never done bar and I don't even know that you exist, even if I take the time to watch a video and you're like talking to me about why, we do a move like this or whatever else, it can be great information, but like there's no value for me in that. I don't need that education. That's further down the funnel. Yeah. That kind of content's powerful once I have participated with you and I'm like actually interested in the product. So it's why the symptom problem solution, I might not know anything about bar, but I know what problems I have. And if you start talking about that, I perk up and pay attention.
Right. Yeah, which I guess validates the need for all of these different content types, because you're going to hit people at different points in time and points in their journey.
Yes. Yep. And we'll get to this in a moment, but creating these, like, you're not going to do these one time either. You'll recreate the same content multiple times. So when we look at details of content, you've got your matrix. This is like how you would conceptualize what are we going to talk about. And then here's the key to this. Only do this. Come up with 3 pillars, come up with 5 content types, and then just only do that for like 1 year and see what happens. It's a very strange thought. We get bored of it ourselves. We're like, oh, I want to create this. I'm going to do this trend or whatever else. But when we're trying to build brand, we don't see that that is the most powerful way to do it. It's about like a really consistent longer term approach repetitively. And then rather than changing what you're saying, we're optimizing the way that we say it for engagement. And that's where we start to see real traction as well. Details to consider. People want to do business with people, not with businesses. And then we alluded to this in the beginning. The biggest missed opportunity I see in boutique fitness and wellness is not leveraging the whole team. Rather, we almost like try not to. We're fighting against it. But if you think about it this way, let's suppose my studio has 5 instructors. We use a small number to make it easy. And then I build each one of those instructors their own custom landing page with an intro video and stuff on my website. I get them to have their own instructor social media channels. I even put money into a VA and stuff behind it to help them with creation and distribution of things. And each one of them starts to build a following in the local market. But because I'm the one who's taken ownership over it and I'm the one who's established them as an expert, they're an expert under my banner. Mm-hmm. So even if they post something on their own, and even if people like them specifically, it's advertising for you as well.
Right.
And now you have 5 channels going.
Yeah. And I think just human nature, especially if you invest in helping them at all, they're going to feel, like they're responsible to you and they're working for your business in it.
Yes. One question we get all the time is, how do I get my teachers or instructors to post about stuff we have going on in the studio? And the immediate follow-up question is, how often do you post about them? Mm-hmm. So if you just never post about them ever, like, why would they want to? I'm not saying they wouldn't ever, that you can't ask them, but just you think about it, it just kind of makes some sense.
Yeah.
Test concepts multiple times. One of the other things that people miss when making content is we have a good idea, we make the content, it either hits or it doesn't hit, and then we're like, cool, let's do another idea. Do the same idea 10 times. Keep optimizing on the same piece, because again, it'll be a different group of people that see it most of the time. People who have seen it before, it's good for it to be repetitious for them anyways, so there's no downside to that. And on top of it, it makes it easy for you, because when you make one piece of content about one thing, you can just remake it like 5 times in a row right now and then space out the distribution of it. So your volume increases quite a bit.
Just change your
outfit. Change your outfit. Yeah, exactly. Prioritize the hook. I mean, grabbing attention really is, like, I wouldn't call this a hack. It just is really a thing. So the example of how we do that is, we don't start generally by doing things such as saying, hey, I'm Josh from the Yogapreneur Collective. Today we're talking about, like, bounce. I'm already gone. I'm already out. So what makes more sense is the hook is right away telling me, what the heck is this about? Why should I pay attention? Or it's piquing curiosity, or it's saying something controversial, or it's just like a little bit jarring. It's something to be like, wait, what? It's like shocking me into paying attention for a second. If you get the hook right, the rest of it gets a lot easier. Cut the fat, no excess information, short and sweet. People ask, how long should a video be? How long should a blog be? How long should an email be? The length doesn't matter. What matters is, can I stay engaged? Because the idea that, like, oh, people only want to watch 2-minute TikTok videos now. Well, that's not true. They go to the theater and watch Avengers Endgame for 3.5 hours. Like, people will sit and watch something if they're engaged and entertained the entire time. So it's really a question of cut the fat. It can be any length of anything you want, as long as the platform allows you to distribute it at that length, as long as there's no random lull and excess stuff that's just like boring. Cut it out. So you often end up with shorter content just because you're cutting the fat out. Connect all your content together. If I'm posting on one platform, it's not only that platform. I should reference another one, and that platform should reference this one. I should send people to my website, et cetera, et cetera. And then in terms of where do you post, number one, where are your people's eyeballs? So this is about knowing your clients. You've been operating for a while. Ask them, but if they're all on Facebook, cool, post there. Pretty straightforward, because you want more clients like that. Or if the people you're going after are not on Facebook, they're on TikTok and you have a TikTok channel, guess what? It would be a good idea to have a TikTok channel. So just simplify it down. Where are people's eyeballs actually looking? But number two, post where your competitors are not. And especially in boutique fitness, this is fascinating, because there are a few places that are just wildly underutilized. I cannot believe how little participation there is on TikTok. Do not sleep on it. And no one's doing YouTube shorts really out there in a big way. No one's running YouTube ads. No one's bothering with LinkedIn. If you post 4 times a week on LinkedIn in your local market, you are likely in the top 2% of all posters in your market. Think about that for a second from an authority standpoint. So, and anyone on LinkedIn who's in your local market, business person likely, they're connected. So potentially a good place. So if your competitors aren't doing those, good idea. Yeah, we're missing a bullet here. Interesting. I mentioned earlier that there's TikTokification of content. What does that mean? It means punchy content that's far more raw and real with a good hook that gets to the point now and is engaging. That's what that means. It also means that the algorithms are shifting, because why TikTok has taken off is it was smart about its algorithm, in that when you post a piece of content, it distributes it to a small group of people in XYZ bubble. If it gets engaged at a certain rate, it expands the bubble again to more people, and then it does it a third and a fourth time. So the potential path for virality is high, because the piece of content doesn't just get posted, spike up, and then die, and it has nothing to do with your followers. The result of that is so much adoption. That was the fastest growing app other than AI apps for the last 5 years straight. There's so much adoption that now all the other platforms are starting to go back to that. Facebook was kind of like that back in the day. That's why Facebook beat MySpace, is because it was a better platform for immediate feedback loop. So they're all coming back to that now, which is really interesting.
And the great part about that is raw is good. So you don't have to spend time making the absolute perfect video. Like, mistakes are funny, and bad backgrounds are fine. So it makes your life easier.
I agree. I mean, now, especially if you've got a half decent phone, like a newer phone, it's more than good enough. I think getting a little mic, maybe that's it. Like, you don't need anything other than that. Maybe a tripod. Like, the only thing you need is that the camera's not so shaky that I'm like dizzy watching it, and the sound needs to be clear enough that I don't get annoyed. But that's it. Beyond that, and we actually see the more polished, the more edited video stuff that's going out there on social media, especially in ads, it doesn't perform.
It
really doesn't. I wouldn't say that it debrands companies, but like, it just really doesn't hit. It's super fascinating. And what you'll see is, one of the industries to look at for what is really trending would be beer. Watch how beer ads go and how curated they are. And they're moving way more sort of UGC style content now, because they realize that's important. Okay.
Quick question from the crowd. What about Nextdoor and Yelp?
Yes. Yelp, they're so annoying. So, if in your market Yelp is a big thing, like in New York, for example, Yelp has a lot of traction, it makes sense to be participating there. The question sometimes is it big enough? Is there enough audience there? And is it the place that people are going to look for something like you that then they would take action on? So Yelp, yes. Nextdoor, yes. Asterisk, probably if you had to pick to start, you're going to have more success on a different platform than those. Yeah. We'll get to this in a moment, but ideally, ultimately, you're trying to create an omnipresence situation in your local market. The detail of that, though, is to try to create omnipresence right out of the gate is very hard. So I wouldn't recommend that. I would start with win on one platform for a minute, then expand to the next one, then expand to the next one as you're going and you're building. Okay, this is a quick snapshot of a content board. So when you're making content, here's the other thought is, if you get yourself organized, because there's actually a lot of steps involved, then it'll make your life easier. It de-stresses it, and you're going to be able to delegate portions of the content creation and distribution, ideally the portions that you don't like to do. So this would be an example out of Asana, where there's a pre-production card that is templated, goes through production, it goes through editing, then there's a review, then there's a distribution, then there's another distribution, then there's a PPC distribution, then there's a completed, and then this actually pings it into a different board where it says, then we measure it after X time, we recycle it after X time, and we reiterate it after X time. So you can have simultaneously a bunch of pieces just moving along as you're going. This is just one version of what's there, but taking the time to build this and organize the path and how to manage it has a huge impact in the amount of volume that you can create. Content is king, as we've been talking about. Context is God. So when we're talking about distribution of content, the details of what's being said might not change much, but the formatting of what you put out there should be congruent with the platform that you're operating on, if that makes sense. So if I am posting on Facebook, that has a specific style. If I'm posting on Reels or TikTok, that has a specific style. If I post a square to Instagram Reels, for example, and it's just like a collage post, it might not do anything negative, but that's not why people are looking in that area. So it kind of doesn't make sense. The context isn't there. To get the most out of your content, it's not about creating something one time. So for any social media post, when you're measuring that engagement and stuff, then you would recycle. So you recycle the concept by saying like, okay, we talked about this, I'm going to talk about it again and again and again. You'd also recycle the exact same post. If you post something and it is seen by 10,000 people, or let's use a smaller number, 1,000 people, how likely is it they are the only 1,000 people who could possibly be interested in that post? Very unlikely. So it makes sense to just take the literal exact same post and just repost it again after XYZ amount of time. Once you get your content board going, one of the things that we would often do is at about 3 months or 6 months, depending on how much volume someone's creating, just go back in, top performing posts from 3 months ago, repost them again. The ones that really hit, we draft off of them, which means we do a follow-up. So you repost it, and then we do like a reaction to your own post from before. And we say like, hey, before in this video, we talked about this, and now here's more information, because it's like people have voted that it's interesting. So we continue the conversation. Mm-hmm. Similar to that is doing reaction or response, especially in video. This is huge. So TikTok makes it very easy, but you can do this on any platform. Here would be a really simple example of this. If you are driving people to leave you Google reviews, which is a good idea in your business, by the way, every single Google review, you should respond to it in Google. But imagine if every single Google review you got, all of them, you have hundreds, you do a green screen video of you reading out the review and reacting to what the review is about. Every single one. Like, not hard, not long.
About the 3 minutes of video content a day.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last thing is atomizing. So atomizing is where you take a longer piece of content and you chop it up into smaller pieces. I want to show you guys just real quick here. I'm gonna have to open up this tab again. 1 second. There are some really cool platforms out there now in the world of AI that make some of these things way more sort of accessible than they've been in the past.
Oh, that's awesome. That was
so this
was how we can try for some of this.
Yeah, so this would be an example. Okay, so in the Yogapreneur Collective, can we see this here? Let me just check our thing.
Yep.
Yes, great. No, I want to go to, excuse me, that one. Here we go. Okay, this is called Opus Clip. There's about 10 of these out there. This is the one that I like to use. You take a long form video. So once a week, we do a show inside my private network called the Weekly Roundup. And all the coaches jump on and we basically just talk about what's been going on the last week, what we're finding coming up in coaching calls, what's happening in the industry, questions, et cetera, et cetera. Then that video's, you can see that this was an hour and 14 minutes long. We dump it in here and push one button, and it just cuts it up and creates a write-up. How many did it create? 7, 8, 9, like 10 other videos. It even gives them a score.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So like I mean, Loom like chapterizes videos, but this actually breaks them up with, oh, I love it.
Yeah. Now this is not perfect, but if we're just trying to get volume up, these sorts of things are really fascinating. And what I would say is Loom is another platform that I would highly recommend people have on their radar and use. But using the chapters in Loom, or the other platform would be Descript, because you can edit by, Loom now does this if you have the upgrade, you can edit the video by the text. So you can see the transcript, go in, look at the text area, and like cut that part of the video out to be able to do it. So these are things that they're not new concepts. People have been atomizing and doing stuff for a long time like this with content. It's just, generally speaking, as a small business owner, it's been very difficult to do because you really needed to be able to edit. And now the software has caught up. It's quite easy, actually.
Awesome.
All right. The major point here is we're coming towards the end. When you're creating content, there's ideation of the content, there's planning the content out, there's creating the content, there's editing the content, then there's distribution of the content, then there's measuring. These are completely different things. So the reason I point this out is when you're getting yourself organized for creation, it probably is smarter and more impactful for you to have time to come up with the idea and then to plan it and then to create it and like separate these out, rather than I'm going to sit down today and come up with an idea, plan out what it is and script it, then actually create it, then edit it, then post it out there and then go and measure it tomorrow. Like that's stressful. That's going to take me all day, even just do 1 or 2 videos. So instead you chunk it out into these smaller pieces. And the editing would be an example of like, I sit down with a group and ideate, then I plan it out. I might be the one who creates it. I don't do any of the editing. We just come up with the SOP for how we want editing to be, and we give that to somebody else. Same thing with the distribution. So now like I'm only participating in the first half of it and really only in the creation. The measuring is someone else as a report that could be on it as well.
Please, if you take, I mean, you're going to take a million things from this. There are amazing virtual assistants out there for social media for not a lot of money. It is one of the best investments from a marketing perspective you can make in your business.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't put the pressure on yourself when you could have somebody for $10 an hour doing this for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you find someone who's even $20 an hour, like what their capability level is real high. Like they get this stuff. Yeah. These screenshots are from a platform called make.com. Zapier would be another one. So this is just an example of, for example, here, when we make a video, it gets dropped into Airtable. That automatically, because of Make, goes through a router where it then distributes it to Facebook and then records the Facebook post in Airtable. It also routes it to LinkedIn. It also puts it to the website. It also goes to Twitter. So this is an automation, which means we put one video when it's completed in one place and it goes to all these places. Same thing, different version of it here. This is a little bit beyond the scope of where our focus is. The point is that you can build this more like a machine. One of the stressors that I hear all the time is that maybe I don't like being on camera, or then like all of the steps to do all of this. It's just like a lot of effort and I'm not sure that it's worth it. It's because you're doing all of the steps all the time, rather than building a machine that starts to take half of the steps out and then delegating some of the steps. So you're only doing the most important part that you have to be part of, basically. Batching content. I think that one of the things that is missing in boutique fitness is having like a show or a podcast. Or it sounds funny, interview yourself, or have someone on your team interview you. I've even put in here would be an interview that you would do for like a boutique fitness studio. You know, what inspired you to open your fitness studio? Like literally just have someone read you that question and have a camera on you and answer the question. That's it. And this, 10 questions or whatever, this takes you 30 minutes. That's a long form piece of content. You do it in Loom, so then it gives you a transcript. You use the transcript and you run it through Gemini to create a blog post from it, which you then edit afterwards. Then you atomize the video, so you have social media posts on it. So like, you just sit down and have someone ask you 10 questions, and you could do that a few times a year, and you could create 20 pieces of content.
Awesome. Just quickly, we have a question about, I put where I have our virtual assistants from, but do you have a company that you use that you like?
We have virtual assistants. The 3 places that seem to be really great for virtual assistants right now: Eastern Europe, especially for technical things. Mm-hmm. Romania, for example, like there's just some like really super rock star kind of digital nomad people there. Argentina is one, and then the Philippines. And so we have a small crew from the Philippines through like a third-party company. We've had a couple of them working with us for 4 years at this point. Like they're on our team basically. Yeah. And they're awesome. Yeah.
We use a company called Virtual Latinos, and it is based in San Diego, but all of the VAs are in South America, a lot in Argentina, a lot in Brazil, a lot in Chile. Yep. So I don't know, but Upwork, you'll find a lot of people from the areas he's talking about on Upwork or other kind of contract aggregators.
Yep. There's a company in the States as well called Satiated Artists. They're a little more underground, but they work with stage performers who these are super high creative, high skilled people that don't have enough work. Like you're just not on stage enough. So they want a remote job to do creative things. So for creative stuff it's a little more expensive, but who you're getting is like someone who's pretty dope. Yeah. Okay. It's called social media. Social. I know it sounds silly, but if you want to win on it, what you have to do is participate on it. Now, it doesn't mean you personally necessarily, but the business for sure. Someone's got to be participating. How do you do that? Well, to start, straight up, engage every single client you have. Imagine if all the people who come into your studio for the first time, you make sure you put in the effort to find them on Instagram, follow them, DM them, comment on their thing during their posts for the first month. Don't ask them for anything. Don't ask them to follow you, nothing. Just go and engage them. Guess what happens next? And if you did that across, most boutique fitness studios see thousands of people a year, new people a year coming in. Then compound that over time. Outbound participation is more impactful than you think. It's a little bit annoying from our perspective because you're probably getting targeted by more like national, like state, national, or international level companies trying to sell you something as a business. So the perspective is like, oh, some people are DMing me on Instagram and they just want to sell me this thing. But if you look at outbound and DMing from a localized standpoint, it has a totally different feel. Imagine I live in the same exact town as you. I own an ice cream shop and you own a yoga studio. And I'm like, hey, Laura, I own this ice cream shop down the way. Your studio online looks really dope. Wanted to just say, wanted to introduce myself. Come by some time for an ice cream.
Yeah. Amazing.
Right? Super, super high impact. So that's a little bit laborious, but you could do 5, 10 outreaches, a day, or have someone do that. It would only take 30 minutes. And again, it's like this compounding effect. At the very least, think about when someone DMs you, even if you don't respond, if you're like, wait, what is this? What do you do next? You go to their profile. Mm-hmm. So you go look at their stuff. It puts traffic on your social media. Direct your clients to your social media. That's an easy one, but just have that at that. I'm not talking about like in the footer of your email. I mean, like make a post on social media and then in your next newsletter or something, you send out a little thing saying, hey, we talked about this, blah, 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 and then link to that post. Like actually drive the traffic to it as well. And then we talked about this with the Google Ads as the example, engage all engagements. Someone likes it, say thanks for liking. Someone leaves a comment, respond to the comment. Someone's in a chat, like, you want engagement on it. So someone has to actively be engaging in real time. And here's a little bit of a controversial take, but works algorithmically. It's be controversial. So it's not like try to be weird or rude or something like that, but controversy sparks more conversation. So whenever you're engaging in engagement, the concept is, how do you say or do something that ultimately is going to have more conversation come from it? One of the techniques on the super high level, I'm not saying to do this, it's just fascinating for food for thought, is the example was a dog food company. They put up a bunch of ads for the dog food, but the ads said, post a picture of your dog in the comments and you could win the thing or whatever. Then people would post a picture of their dog in the comments, and then other people would be like, that's a cute dog, I like that dog, whatever. But then they had like 10 or 20 fake accounts that they hired out that would go on and be like, that dog looks stupid. And then someone else would be like, that dog doesn't look stupid, you're an idiot. And there'd be a fight. But the algorithm views this as a hyper engaged post. So it would got served up in this like super insane way.
Wow.
So it's, again, I'm not saying to do that, but it was an interesting like case study for the fact that engagement is what you want. Yeah. Okay. We're right at the end here. Here's some practical hacks. Content is the differentiator. Focus on the content first. Content's king, context is God. Make it contextual for where the person is seeing it. Generally speaking, people are interested in transformation. What's actually the value that you're offering? Who are they going to become? Then they're interested in the benefits. Then they're interested in the features. So if you're like, we have a studio that has this feature and this feature and this feature, that's boring until I understand why that matters in context of the transformation. Be different early and often. So don't be scared to put your personality out there. And if everyone's doing this and you're like, no, we want to do this, do that. Even if you are so different that it is off-putting to one person, it means it will make someone else want to be an evangelist. Product placement over promotion. You're going to see this in ads quite a bit now as well. We're not saying like, hey, this is a great Miami hat, you should buy it. I'm just going to talk about something and have this hat on. Product placement is just there. You don't need to talk about the yoga classes in your studio. Be like, this class is great for this and this. Just tell a story, or just be like, hey, welcome to the studio, and walk through and just show the class, or just talk about like something happening. Authenticity over polish. We already talked about that a little bit. People want something real. And consistency, there's a couple other ones here, but you guys got it. Consistency always beats intensity. It makes more sense for you to run 3 posts a week, every week from now until eternity, than it does to do 3 posts today and then every day this week and then nothing for 2 months.
Yeah.
So step 1, you do want frequency, but step 1 is consistency. You want as much long-term consistency as possible. Practical stuff, we already talked on it. Don't sleep on LinkedIn. Don't sleep on TikTok. Don't sleep on YouTube for ads and YouTube Shorts. And then here's a weird one that we never think of. You're a brick and mortar business where I physically come in and I physically stare in your face and we actually talk face to face. So show me that. Get out on the streets. Stand in front of your studio and be like, hey, if you can do this Pilates pose, you win $5 or whatever, and just film the whole thing, or like do a day in the life or whatever else. Show what's going on in real time, because that is the nature of your business. All right, we're going to skip through these lead stages because we're at the end here. But the idea is you just want to cover the idea of someone being a cold lead, a warm lead, a hot lead. There's a different piece of content that they need. And the final thing that I'm sure you'll be thinking after this is, cool, organic content. What about paid? We already alluded to that. Short answer is yes, absolutely. Literally every boutique fitness studio should be running paid social media ads, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The key to it is this. It's a broad audience. Do not hyper target. That's completely the opposite of everything else you're going to see on there. We just don't need to do it. We're not like, okay, I want women 36 to 40 who have an Apple computer, who are interested in yoga and have a dog. No, I would just say drop a pin on the studio, 5-mile radius, age bracket. Maybe men or women if that's specific. Like, that's it. And let it run, and it will perform better. We just see it all the time. Don't worry about the return on investment from a specific ad. Worry about the branding that you're creating. So stick to it for like a year and see what shakes out. A couple other practical things. It makes sense usually for anything that you put up as an ad, run it as an organic post first. So you post it as an organic post, let it be up there for 2 or 3 days, then turn it into an ad. Because it'll take social proof with it and it feels more authentic. And ultimately, you're looking for omnipresence. If I'm on this platform, I see you. I go to this platform, I see you. I go to this platform, I see you. Which means that remarketing becomes a huge component of what you're doing. Remarketing is your Facebook pixel or your Google tag or something like that. Or within Facebook or Instagram, for example, you post a video and we say, anyone who watched 50% or more of that video, show them this video. Mm-hmm. And that's a remarketing audience. So that's how you're curating the next thing that somebody sees. If I've watched 2 or 3 videos that are like problem solution videos, like we talked about earlier, now educational videos might be more interesting for me.
Right.
Okay. Budget always comes up at the end. You need to have a decent budget inside your marketing for ads. That being said, here's the mind twist. Your marketing advertising budget is the only budget that you are trying to spend more money. Every other budget, we're trying to spend less. Marketing advertising, we're trying to spend more. We're just trying to make the efficiency better. So it's important to actually give it a real budget. And then if you're increasing in your business, keep going, basically.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
That was amazing. So much good stuff.
I know we had a lot in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, we'll send out the deck with this, Josh, if that's okay. Yeah. I probably asked you first, but but I know there were a lot of things that people might want to read a little bit in more detail. But if you have questions, post. Feel free to pop into our Facebook group and ask. Josh, I think you're in there. Yep. You can answer some, but also in general, I know we have some people that are heavily engaged in their social media strategies, some that aren't quite as much. So I'm sure a lot of you guys can give each other ideas and just share best practices. But thank you so much for your time. And we will be with this new platform sequel, you'll get a recording of the webinar. So you don't have to worry about that. You can go back and share and watch. And then it also lives on our website. So on our website, we have a webinars page and you can go back at any time and watch it there. So if you have anybody you think would be interested in this, please feel free to share. It's really easy to find. And more than anything, we just would love to see you guys implementing some of these strategies because it's going to only benefit all of us in this industry.
Heck yeah.
Thanks for your time, Josh. Thank you, everyone. And
thanks, everyone.
See you next month. All right. Bye-bye.